Good day. It says you or someone has just been in a traumatic event where you may have lost some blood and you need a transfusion. You need to replace that blood. Well, what we don't want to have happen is something called agglutination. And that's something that's going to lead to the red blood cells clumping together. And that means they can't transport oxygen efficiently to cells of the body. And potentially the result would be death. So we have things called antigens, and in this case we're worried about antigens on the surface of the red blood cells in the donated blood. And this year with COVID-19 you've heard a lot about antibodies, and antibodies are things found in the white blood cells or in the recipient's blood, and they are designed to work against any invaders. So if you have type A blood, that means in your red blood cells you have A antigens, and you can see them sticking out here. If you have type B blood, you have B antigens sticking out. If you're type AB, it means you have both types, both type A and B antigens sticking out of the surface of the red blood cells. And if you're type O, you don't have either of those antigens sticking out of the red blood cells. And then we look at the antibodies that are present. And so what we see is if we had A antigens, we're going to have anti-B antibodies. If we have B antigens, we're going to have the anti-A antibodies. If we had AB, we're not going to have either the A or the B antibodies. And if we're type O, we're going to end up with both. And this is referring to the blood. So it tells us what we want to avoid having. We don't want to get our antigens matching up and clumping together with the antibodies. So we have a little chart here, and what we see is we know if we're type A, we have type A antigens, and we'll have type B antibodies, and we do the same thing here, boom, boom, boom. And that's B and that's A, it flips around. We know if we have both antigens, we won't have either antibodies, that's why it says none. And finally, if we don't have antigens, we're going to have both antibodies. So that stuff's pretty easy. And what you see is these two columns add up to A and B. If I have an A there, I got a B there. If I have a B here, I have an A there. If I have an A and B there, I don't have anything here. If I have nothing here, I have to have both of them there. So that's one thing, and you will have to memorize this, so make sure you get that under control. So now it says what blood can be received from. So we'll do it. Let's slide this over a bit. Boom, boom, boom. Slide that up so we can do things and have a good look at whatnot. So type A can receive blood from. So that means we look at type A blood has B antibodies. So it can receive anything that doesn't have B antigens. So it can receive A and it can receive O. It can't receive B or AB, because those B's would clump together the B's, that'd be agglutination. So we write down A and O. Now it says, what can type A be donated to? Well, it can be donated to anything that doesn't have A antibodies. So it can't go to B, it can't go to O, it can only go to A and AB, because we don't get a matching of the letters. And that's why it says A and AB. Well, the same thing is going to apply to type B. It's going to be B and O, and then it will be B and AB for the same reasons as earlier. Now, let's take a look at, I better move this one down a bit. Now, if we take a look at AB, AB has no antibodies, so it can receive any of the blood types with no risk of agglutination. My rectangle's moving around. So that's why you see them all listed. And then type AB, it can only be donated to AB because it has no antibodies. It cannot go to A because the B and B would get together. Cannot go to B because the A and A would get together. And it can't go to type O because the A and B would both clump together. So that's why it says AB there. And now we do type O. Type O can only receive blood from type O. All these antigens here would clump together with antibodies. But type O can be donated to every blood type because it has no antigens to trigger a response. So that's what we're going to get in our final chart. And what you'll see here is blood type O is called the universal donor because it can donate to all the other blood types because it has no antigens. And type AB is called the universal receiver because it can receive all the other blood types because it has no antibodies. Now, there are other things they look for in a blood type match. This would be more in the form of an emergency. So generally, you want to have the same blood type donated to the same blood type. So type A to type A, type AB to AB. But in an emergency, these things, the combinations I've shown here, would work. You may have to watch this more than once. It can be confusing.